Hello, everyone. This is Michael, and welcome to Time to Awaken. Again, this is going to be one of my shorter videos. Um, this one, again, is a little different. It's a question that people often ask, and I thought I'd try to attack that question literally. Okay, today is April 9th, 2025, and the new video is called Does Evil Always Look Evil or Ugly? Good versus evil. Okay? So the question is asked often, why do bad things happen to good people? And others would say, if God is such a good God and is so powerful, why does he allow all of these bad things to happen? Well, you may not like the answer to the question. Okay? We kind of connected to some of this in the video called predestination. Um, but we're gonna attack this further here. Okay? Um, when we look at TV and all the graphics and whatever that we are shown in the world today, evil always looks evil. You can look at it, if you listen to a kid's program, oh, they have beady eyes and they have, whatever. And you can just tell by looking at them whether they're evil or not. Can you? I think not. Okay? So these are huge questions, and the answers are not always what we want to hear. We're programmed with a worldly view of good and evil. We're told from a man's perspective what everything is supposed to look like. And unfortunately, God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. You recognize these? These are actual biblical verses. God is perfect in judgment and understanding, and he sees the big picture, and he cannot tolerate sin. We, in our short lifespans, can only see a very short-sighted view. Here is the entirety of the answer we are given. Granted, it is not completely wrong, but is quite incomplete. God created the heavens and the earth, and it was good. He created man and gave him free will. Man was given woman, and together they both sinned. Neither one ever took responsibility for their sin. The man was responsible. Did he take responsibility for what his wife did? No. They could only pass it off to one another. And in either case, sin came into the world, and so Adam and Eve had to be removed from Eden. They were seduced by a serpent, the world, which is part of the earth itself, right? So that means that all the earth and man and woman sinned. And for all of that, we're essentially in quarantine. The world in which we live in no longer is good, but is controlled by evil and sin. And because of that sin, we are all affected, both good and bad. In the end, all sin will go to Satan, and all sinless, or all who come to Christ, will go to God. So, is there a difference? God has shown us in His Word the directions and the timeline of how to get out. And in the meantime, we must decide which way we will follow. Do we continue to follow the road of sin that was started by Adam and Eve, or do we take the high road and follow Christ out of this world? It says we must be born again. We are to be saved. See the link of this connection in another article and video. It's called A Literal Saved and Born Again. That's a link right there. Okay? You can click on it and it'll open up the article. So what about that question? Does evil always look evil? The answer to that is an absolute no. When we look at when you look at movies, games, programming, etc., we always see these horrible looking people or creatures, and they represent the bad guys, right? They always make them look like the bad guys. They look evil. Um, but is that the way it really is? So we're programmed to think that it was has to always look ugly to be evil. That, of course, is a lie. If you're taught to see it this way, you can't see the real evil before you. And many of the philanthropists, those who give money freely to other people, right, today looked and act so good up front. But that is where the deception begins. We are taught to accept what we are taught without question. Why? Because they are smarter than us. Isn't that what they tell us? Science, history, and especially our understanding of the Bible are never allowed to be questioned in any way. If you're famous or have money, people see you as a role model. They don't seem to care whether it's a good or a bad one. We see it in the very social agendas that are in the world today, right? Good is bad and bad is good. That's the way the Bible speaks of it. And that's what we're seeing today. From a worldly point of view, we see good differently than God. Many have been programmed to see it the way we are told to see it, and they see God's judgments and wrath as that which is evil and not the other way around. The answer to our first question is, of course, not. We have many out there who are part of the secret and often satanic organizations. You have others who look like they're great people, but when you find out their agendas, we find out that they're creating a front, and people will follow them. In all these cases, we're seeing an agenda of deception, just as Satan is the great deceiver. Our purpose is to see through those deceptions and repent. Look to God and to Yeshua, and short of that, you will never be clear of this world. Most people can't imagine anything beyond this. Most will ignore the truth and believe the lie. The key here is to have faith and to believe in the very things this world would tell you is the lie. So, how about the second question? Why do bad things happen, or why do they happen to good people? For one thing, the above is true. We live in a fallen and sinful world. That was a short and sweet answer, wasn't it? But is it enough? Probably not. If you read the parables, God gives us many of the answers. In Luke, he built a vineyard, he put a hedge around it, he gave it over to some vine dressers. When the time came to harvest the people, God sent many servants or prophets to talk to the vine dressers, the leaders of this world, right? The vine dressers, about getting God's part of the harvest. The people, God's harvest. Those men were beaten and sent away or killed. And finally, God sent his son and figured that they would surely listen to him. They killed him, thinking that by eliminating the son that they would be able to keep everything. But God says he will send vengeance upon these workers. In the meantime, the harvest is about to begin, just not all at once. Right? We know that there are three parts of harvest. In Luke, we see that at the time of the great feast, there are three different groups being brought in, all separately, according to God's law of the harvest. Right? And the final one, the second group technically, okay? The left behind 90% of the left behind church, right? And they must be compelled to come in. Why? Because the first rapture happened and they didn't believe it. They still don't believe we're in tribulation. It's not happening the way they were taught. and they had to be compelled to come in. And many don't even believe that there is a rapture or a tribulation, and that makes it worse. All right, so we digress. God is looking for those who will truly be His. The first fruits are those who want to get into His Word and get into His meat and ask Him questions and know the truth, right? Not the truth that is told necessarily by our teachers and preachers and books and whatever, right? The Bible speaks of that. It tells us that He disciplines those who are His, and most will go through tribulations in life. Unfortunately, many will fail and walk away, and many will go through great trials. They will question everything and come out the other side stronger than when they started. I have an article and a video about that as well. Is it bad to question your beliefs? People lose loved ones, children, parents, friends, loved ones of all kinds. Horrible things happen. Job was a good example of that. He lost all of his children, his home, his wealth, etc. His first reaction was to tell his wife, who told him to curse God, that He gives us the good. Should we also not accept the bad as well? But then his friends came into the limelight, right? All those people out there telling us the truth in their own eyes. They all gave him bad counsel. It changed his perspective. He started to doubt. And finally, when God came into the picture, he asked Job a bunch of questions, right? He gave him a whole new perspective. He says, "Who are you to tell me anything? Where were you? Were you here when I did this? How does this work? Where does this come from?" Right? Those are his questions. How is it that you think that you can tell me anything or how all of this will work? And yet, that's what people do. This is God's world and His will, and He created it. He sets the rules. The world instead tells us that we are equal with God or that there is no God. So we can set our own rules. We can't even fathom the ways of God. He has reasons and purposes for what He does. We may not understand them, but He knows the way, right? That kind of gets into that predestination thing, doesn't it? Which is another video coming up. You'll see the link here. We don't always know why it happens. We can only accept that it does. The reality is that not everyone is meant for heaven. This is a hard one for people. It creates huge debates. So here's something I put together for that as well. There it is, the link for predestination. You might find some very interesting verses there. So this isn't what everyone wants to hear. We come into Christianity being told that it is so easy. Just say a prayer and your life will completely change for the better. It is true from a certain point of view, like long term, right? If you truly accept Christ and everything that goes with it, then your life will change. In truth, it will probably get harder. You will probably have to give up your old ways and friends, and it isn't an easy life, at least not for those who are truly following Him. And for those who read this during the tribulation, many will have to go through this temptation period. Many will have to become the martyrs that we only read about currently? Are you willing to put your very life and of those around you, your own children, on the line? Would you die for it? And yes, I do mean children. If there is a rapture, only the children of those who have parents that have been saved will get to go. The rest of the children remain behind. That is a biblical concept, right? You go back to the Old Testament and look what would happen to the children and the women and so on and so forth when they took over cities and towns and so on, right? And the Gentiles. Nothing's changed. Clean versus unclean. Is death a bad thing? Not necessarily. Those who die in these last days, being in Christ and not taking the mark, will be revived later. Hosea 6:2. And First Thessalonians chapter 4. It's not a rapture verse, folks. It's an end of tribulation verse. Would you die for it? The question. It is just a matter of time. So, the question comes, if God was and always has been, if he created all things, then he most certainly did create evil. The purpose of that evil is a whole other question. We are taught that God did not create evil, yet the Bible states that he created all things, including evil. Let me read it. Isaiah 45, 5 through 7. I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. Darkness always refers to bad or evil, okay? Those who are not in light are in darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaiah 45, 5 through 7. And Kings 22:20. Behold, therefore I will gather thee unto thy fathers, and thou shalt be gathered into thy grave in peace. And then I shall not see all the evil which I will bring upon this place. And they brought the king word again. Right? God allows evil to work, and it's usually used as a form of punishment to people. It's usually used as a form of punishment for people. So, God tells us, all right, title, how has God used it throughout time? Right? Question. God tells us many times that he used evil in order to turn the people. Right? He says that in Revelation and elsewhere, right? He keeps bringing tribulation and hopes that people will finally turn and return to him. He used it as a form of judgment. He used Gentile nations to remove his people, such as Nebuchadnezzar, whom we talked about above and in another video. People, multiple times, he removed his people because they were following other gods and creating idols, just as they do in the church today, right? Israel did it. The church today still does the same. And don't go pointing your finger directly at the Catholic Church. Every church practically out there uses crosses and other symbols, right? That God has said do not use in his scripture. In his own word, he states that multiple times. You can go watch my video on the cross, and there's another article in here about that same thing, right? It's a fact. And yet, we have followed down the same path. The left behind church is the Israelites, the 10 tribes of Israel. That is who they are. Okay? So multiple times he removed his people because they were following other gods and creating idols just as they do just as they do, right? And the church does today. And each time it equated to what God called using evil. And that is precisely what is about to happen with both the 7 years of seals and the 7 years of trumpet judgments. Now, he does this a lot. He speaks of using this a lot, especially in the Old Testament, and we're playing out the prophecies of the Old Testament all over again. Okay? The 7 years of seals for the left behind church, and the 7 years of trumpets for those who did not accept Christ at the end, essentially Judah and Benjamin. Okay? Now, later, he speaks of repenting of that, and he will forgive them. In the end, he will receive many and revive them. Sorry, I used the wrong word, but he will revive them, right? He'll revive his people at the end, but those who have not received the mark. Okay? We can't hope to understand it all. The only thing we can do is accept it and learn. And those who refuse will fail to make it to heaven and end up in hell. All right, one last thing. These aren't Bible quotes, but they are a great understanding that came from C.S. Lewis. There are two of them. All right. Um, this first one was one I found recently. We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. In every case, those who are God's will go through some form of tribulation. It's like him trying to find out who truly are ready and willing to be with him in heaven and to follow his laws. Okay? The second one. There are only two kinds of people in the end. I have had this for 20, 30 years now. Those who say to God, thy will be done. Remember that? We saw it in another video. We've talked about it here. God's will be done. Okay? And those to whom God says, thy will be done. All right, fine. You don't want to listen? Your will be done just as you wanted, right? All that are in hell choose it. Without that self-choice, there could be no hell. No soul that seriously and constantly desires joy will ever miss it. And those who seek find, but those who knock, it is opened. Do you understand? So this speaks very well to about 3 of these videos that I have done just in today's short videos. Okay? So does evil always look like evil? Absolutely not. Many of the people that you probably consider as the good guys, these rich guys who are out there giving all kinds of money, right? Um, Even politicians that people admire, women politicians and their husband politicians, and and people have created computer software and many others, right? All these people and organizations that have secret societies, etc. Many people think, oh, they do all this good, but it's a front. It's a front for evil. It's always a front for evil. Evil can look good on the front end, but that's the deception, isn't it? All the words that are spoken out there in our world today, it sends us down the wrong path, and it makes people think that God must be evil for doing the things that he's doing without remembering that God is God and he can do as he pleases. This is his world. He created it all and he set the rules. Can he go back on what he said? No. He is perfect in understanding and perfect in judgment. Okay? All that said, evil was created by God. He says so multiple times, but he created it for a purpose. And we saw that again in one of the other videos as well. Evil was created to be used in these times in order to be used for judgment and so on. And he's used it throughout history. Go look at the Old Testament. And he's got his reasons, his purposes. Not everyone was created to go to heaven. Some were literally created, predetermined, predestined to evil. The God specifies it, and it shows it from the beginning of the Bible to the end. And with that, time to close this one out. I hope you've gained something from this. It may not be what you want to hear. From a worldly perspective, we don't always understand. And we won't always know for what purpose evil came upon us, whether it's for judgment or for some future purpose for someone, say in your family, your children, yourself, that you cannot imagine today. All right. I pray that people will understand and get something out of this. And I pray God bless. God bless each of you in these final days. Bye, everybody.